Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
As some of you know, all of you will know right now, I've had one job my whole life. I had part-time jobs in high school and through college and did all sorts of, I've got some great stories about not so great jobs. But I had one real job, the 40-hour week, actually was more than 40-hour week, but the one full-time, hey, you're a big boy now kind of a job. And I remember interviewing for it. I interviewed for it out of law school. I interviewed with kind of the HR guy, and then they invited me into the firm for in-firm interviews. And you talk to a number of people in the firm, but I remember the one interview in particular was with the big boss, Jim Moore. He was the guy. He was everything. And this was you didn't realize it at the time, but he was kind of the make or break guy. And I, leading into those interviews that day, was the day-long process. I'm like, okay, what are they going to ask me about taxes? Because it was a tax consulting thing, and I'm kind of boning up on things in Section 368 and Section 61, and what are these tax court cases? And none of it ever came up, especially with the big guy. He could care less. I don't mean that in a bad way. We never really talked about the crux of what I was going to be doing. He was just more concerned about what I was going to be in the office. He assumed I could do the work, or I could figure out how to do the work. What mattered to him was I a good fit for the office? And I think I got hired, so I assume that's the case. So at any rate, that leads me into today's guest, Shannon Hernandez. And on paper, she's this messaging and marketing strategist, and she's a founder of an organization called Joyful Business Revolution. But when you get to know her, you'll start to realize that, like my interview with Jim Moore, it's really more about humanity. It's not about letters creating words that create sentences that are sending a message. It's about building a relationship through the things we do and the messages that we get out there. So, she's a noted expert. She's been on CBS, ABC, Fox, NBC, and has worked with the likes of the NFL and the U.S. military. So, Shannon, people don't know it, but this is our third attempt to get you on. You're a busy lady, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for sticking with my crazy schedule.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. You know what? I've always said, I'm never bothered by people who are busy, right? And so if I say, hey, I would love to have a conversation, you say, listen, I'm busy for 3 weeks. I'm okay with that. I'm worried if you say, yeah, I'm ready right now, call me, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
That sends a whole different message. So don't worry about that. So let's talk about messaging. Let's talk about humanity. Let's bringing humanity into messaging, and I guess step back and how you got to this place.
Yeah. Well, I was a teacher for 15 years, and my last 5 years I taught in Spanish Harlem, New York City.
Oh, wow.
And I intentionally put myself there. So I grew up in the Midwest, precisely between a cornfield and bean field.
Okay.
A bunch of people that look like me. And then I decided when I graduated college, there has to be more to the world than this. And so I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I taught many years there. And then I kind of got a little bored with teaching, not with the teaching, but just with Charlotte, North Carolina. I wanted more diversity. And so I said, how can I serve people and it be very different? And then the craziest idea from somebody that came from a town of 4,000 was to move to New York City and teach in Spanish Harlem. And that's really where I think I understood the power of relationships, because I didn't look like those children. I didn't sound like those children. I didn't have the experience of those children. They were eighth graders. They weren't going to let anything slide, right? They like see everything and they comment on it and they have no filters whatsoever. And so I really learned how to be a relationship driven human solely and selfishly because at the time I was not going to walk out of that classroom alive every day looking at 40, I saw 90 kids a day actually. And it was, my mindset, my mental health, all of that just would have been gone. And so I learned really quickly how to build relationships with people that were very different from me.
Yeah, that's one of the things I talk about from time to time is what really came to me through the pandemic and the lockdown and getting on Zoom and meeting people all around the world is we're all the same.
Yes.
We have kids who drive us crazy, spouses that drive us crazy, things that annoy us, worried about prices, and it's so easy to watch the news or watch whatever and just see little sound bites and not necessarily sound bites, but, small little, hey, this is what, this is, this is what Chicago looks like. It's like, well, it really doesn't. I mean, yes, that picture does, but that's not all of Chicago or New York or wherever.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is my father and mother chose to stay. Well, I was the one that chose to leave, so they stayed.
Right.
And they have a very insular view of what the world is like, right? And so my dad still is like, I mean, I've been in New York City now for like 20 some years. He's still like thinks it's the 80s, gang ridden graffiti.
Yeah.
I'm going to get shot if I walk outside my house. And I just had to tell him, like, Dad, you have to I would not put myself in that situation, but you also have to live a little.
Yeah. Has he visited?
He visited one time.
Okay.
And that will be the only time. And it was a good visit, but he's not a very adventurous person to begin with. So that was it.
Yep. Sounds like me. Sounds like my dad. Yeah, I get it. So let's talk about marketing and messaging and being organic, being authentic, and how you work with clients and how you help them convey humanity. It's through this.
Yeah. Well, I used to say pre-AI.
Yeah.
Being human, meaning having emotions and sharing them when they're appropriate. All right. So there's a fine line there. But having emotions, being human, and sharing the parts of you in your messaging and marketing that make you human is the greatest gift that you could give anyone. We're moved by stories and we're moved by emotions just as like human beings, right? Yeah. And now post AI, I'm saying the same thing, but it has even more weight now. And it's because a lot of people are just using AI, and I use it too. Okay. Yeah. But in terms of your messaging, it doesn't have the depth of humanity. It doesn't have your stories. It doesn't have your experiences. It doesn't have the soul of a person that can help the copy feel something.
Yeah.
And so I still say, even after AI, the best thing you can do to stand out is to be human in your messaging and in your marketing.
No, I think I totally agree. I mean, I use AI as well. I'm a proponent of it. For me, AI is a way to kind of get me started, right?
Yes.
Or a touch point that, okay, I'm trying to say this. Does this make sense? Kind of a thing. I don't use it to say, okay, I need you to craft an email for me. A very terse email, letting them know, but in a kind way. But I'm sure people do.
Yeah, they do. And I think it is a great starting point, but I think a lot of things depend on you understanding your audience, whether you're walking into a room to go meet people, or you're walking into their living room via the email inbox,
Yeah.
right? Who are the people on the other side of your communication? And what is it that's going to help you? I call it build that bridge of belonging, right? And back in the days when I was walked into like New York City public schools, I didn't have the language for that, but that's what I was doing, is helping each person build a bridge of belonging, belonging to themselves, belonging in their community, belonging to me as their teacher and to their classmates. You have to remember, Frank, many of these people, students, they left and they like 3 o'clock hit and it was time to go like to the family of the gang, right? Or they didn't see their parents for all week because the parents were working 3 and 4 jobs, right? To keep things going. And so one of the greatest gifts that I think all of us being human can be is get out of your bubble and go meet new people and put yourself in new circumstances, because you definitely earn a lot more compassion.
Yeah.
But then share those experiences, right? And I think that's the really important part here. It's the sharing of the experiences that show our humanity.
Yep. I agree. Yeah. No, I agree. How have you translated all of this to working with businesses? Well, I guess let me preface it by saying this. I could see somebody coming to you and saying, okay, yeah, help me with my messaging, help me with my strategy, my marketing, and they're thinking about it in very left brain terms, if you will.
Yeah.
Very formulaic. We're going to do this, this, and this. And I'm sure that's part of it, but there's another element that you're bringing into it.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things I love to do is to help people. I call it a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if we built a campaign around something that really mattered to you, what would it be? And so, for example, I'm working with a client right now. She's a therapist who's outgrown, well, her therapy practice has outgrown her. There are not enough hours in a day because of all the people. So she's going to keep that therapy, but she's also going to do this group component, right? And so one of the things I asked her, Frank, was, when you think about your program that you're trying to do here, what is the main thing that we need people to understand? Like that they're a fit, that this is for them, or that it's not? Because good messaging will both qualify and disqualify, right?
Yeah.
And she said, I need people to understand that we all go out with masks on. Like, we mask things, right? Like, I meet Frank on his podcast and I put the mask of the professional on. And then I go to pick up Johnny from the daycare and then I put the mask of like the cool mom on. So I'm accepted by the mom group. And so we built a campaign called Unmasked. And I actually had her design, if you remember back, maybe when you had children, young children, or way back in school, they give us like paper plates and like construction paper, and we design these masks. I had her design a mask for like each of the masks that we put on when we go out, and then tell a story and show the mask. It took no time at all to fill her program, right? But it was creative. It was out of the box. It was thinking about something bigger than selling the program, but like this issue of, do we put on our masks before we go out? And which mask are we wearing? Are we aware of that? So that's just one really like practical example that's happening right now.
Oh, I mean, I love the exercise.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me of something my dad used to have us do, is if you couldn't decide on something, let's say I can't decide. There's 5 things here. I really can't decide. 5 index cards. You write them out on 5 index cards and say, okay, now I want you to put them in order. You have to put them in order. And that would force you, because they can't lay flat on the table. They have to be together. And so what you're doing is you're forcing your client, same sort of logic, you're forcing them to draw a picture. A lot of times when we're looking for clients, we don't want to commit. I mean, I see that with messaging with people asking for referrals. They don't want to commit. So they'll use a lot of pronouns like someone, anyone, indefinite pronouns is the word I'm looking for. You know, anyone who, and they're trying to just bundle it in. And what you did was you know, okay, it can be in anyone, but what do they look like, right? What are they, you know,
Yeah.
what are
What
the
are they
stories?
feeling? And
Yeah.
what do they want to feel? Because with the psychology of messaging, which is a whole thing that I teach, right? It's like when we tell a story, whether it's a factual story, a made up story, or whatever, the brain is already making decisions on our behalf, right? Every listener who's listening to this right now, they're already like, this lady's crazy helping people with mass, or like, this is an inventive idea, right?
Yeah.
The brain is already making that. And so my job as a messaging and marketing strategist is to make the brain, one, stop the scroll or pay attention, not delete the email. All right. And two, produce a positive emotion so that people want to keep coming back, open your next email or read your next post or click the thing to book a call with you or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. No, it's genius. Yeah.
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time around the psychology of messaging and storytelling. And it's like my happy place. I have so much fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the stories that stick, right? The abstract doesn't. And I learned that on my podcast. Well, you heard how I started the podcast, right? It used to be I would just come on, Shannon, and I would be like, all right, this is Frank Agin, welcome to the Networking RX podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I had somebody who was a speech coach on who was interviewing, and she basically coached me in front of everybody. It was a little bit embarrassing. It went on for 2 episodes because it kind of went long. I said, okay, we're going to cut here, come back for the next, because she's really going to get into the meat of this. And there were a lot of little takeaways, but the big takeaway was, you know, start every episode with a story. And that's not always easy. But I've been around the block a few times. I have stories, and sometimes they get recycled or whatever. But sometimes you really have to kind of dig into memory. But what I find, back to my point, is that one, I can talk on a smaller topic for a long time, right? Two, I guess this is the more important part, people remember it and people will comment to me about it. They'll, you know, and there's a 3-month lag between when we record and when we'll release. And so sometimes people are saying things to me. It's like, where'd you get that? Oh my God. Yes, that's right. I said that, you know, I've forgotten I've said it. So.
Yeah. Well, I was going to compliment you offline, but I'll just do it now while we're recording.
Thank you.
I loved the way you started with the story, right?
Thank you.
And the reason I loved it is because, one, I actually was envisioning your listeners, and I'm like, I bet they wonder how he's going to bridge this story to what we're going to talk about.
Well, but they don't even know who's coming on, right? So it's, you know, where's this going? And that's why I tell when I'm out talking to people, and I'll have stories or I'll introduce something. Well, here's one that I use. I tell people, I don't like coconut. I hate coconut. It gives me a gag reflex. People are like, where's he going with this? But if you give me an Almond Joy bar, which is all coconut, I'll take it, because I'm not taking it for me. I'm taking it for somebody else. And that my whole premise in that story is we should be collectors of opportunities, not for ourselves, but for the people in our lives, and trusting that they'll, you know, but it makes people lean in, right? Yeah. Whereas if I just said, hey, we should be collectors of opportunities for everybody, that's just kind of a little abstract statement. Yeah. Okay. Big deal. So what, Frank, you know?
Speaking about leaning in, I was at so I belong to the National Speakers Association.
Yep.
And we had a New York City chapter meeting on Friday. And the room was before, like, I always get there 20 minutes early because I want to like connect with people who are there. And the room was starting to fill. It was about like 2 minutes before we had to sit down. And I was standing in the aisle, and there were 4 people, and I had just come back from Bali. So some of them had watched some social media, and they had said, hey, you know, Shannon went to Bali. She just got back from Bali. Her birthday was whatever they were saying. And then all of a sudden these 4 people are like right in front of me. The volume's getting louder because the room is filling. And I took a strategic step, and I was like, okay, the guy asked me a question and about Bali. And I said, let me tell you a story. And all 4 of them took a step in towards me and leaned in. And it was the most beautiful thing. And that is the power of just saying, let me tell you a story.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, was that story impromptu, or, I mean, how do I want to put it? Was it just something that came to your mind? I mean, I'm not suggesting you made it up, but was it, oh, this story fits here, or was it something you kind of thought about in advance? Obviously, when I'm talking about coconut, I'm preparing it. It's generally prepared in advance, obviously, if I'm speaking, but sometimes I'll be in a group or on a podcast and it'll just come up. But it's in my data bank, right? It's in my CD case, sort of.
Yeah, we call that your story bank.
Okay, there you go.
In your story bank.
Yeah.
Well, the question they asked was about. So I was in Bali during Bali goes silent for a whole 24 hours, and it happens on the new moon on their lunar new year. And so I was there, and this festival is called Nepi, right? That's the name of it. And I had posted on social media because we went to this parade in this local village the evening before Nepi, and they build these big, they're monsters, and they call them monsters. They're like these huge floats that people dance down the street, and they're monsters. And I literally got ran over by one of them. And it was my fault that I got plowed over along with a whole bunch of other people behind me. So we went down like dominoes. And these monsters, the reason I got plowed over is because I thought I'd be really fast and jump in front and take a picture. And they moved faster than I could get out of the way. So yes, he had asked me a question about, did you really get like plowed over by the monsters? I saw your social media. And I said, I really did. Let me tell you the story.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all have stories. We all have things that we can pull from our story banks. We all have story banks, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears here. We're kind of running low on time, but I want you to talk about Joyful Business Revolution and the type of work you do, who you work with. I know you're in New York. I'm sure there are lots of people in New York, but I'm sure you're not limited to that. And how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I love that. Joyful Business Revolution exists to put the joy back in people's business as they scale and grow. We work with coaches, consultants, experts, and organizations who are already established in business. They have a mission that they know makes the world a better place, and they're ready to turn that into a movement where they create belonging in their community and grow their community. We're based out in New York City, specifically New Jersey, right across from New York City. And the best place to get in contact with me is actually LinkedIn. I'd love for you to pop over to LinkedIn, say hello. I'm M. Shannon Hernandez on LinkedIn, and you can also go to joyfulbusinessrevolution.com and check out all the fun things that are there.
Okay, well, I appreciate having you on here today. I am going to look up Nepi and Bali as soon as we're done.
Okay, I love it. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.